Now, in this section, working capital, the current assets is actually or usually they're called as working capital. Why? It's because they turn over the year. It means to say that they come and go in several times over the year. For instance, if you buy inventory, then after 30 days or 20 days or tomorrow, you will sell that one. Then you buy again from your supplier. And also the accounts receivable, you collect them after 10 days or 15 days. Then you sell again, then there's another accounts receivable. So that's why it turns over during the year. Okay. Now, the working capital, it's telling only the current assets. We're not discussing about the current liabilities. Okay, because if we are going to subtract the current liabilities, it will the term of that is what we call the net working capital. It means that our working capital, net working capital is it means to say that it's not coming only from us. When I say net working capital, that is the amount that is coming from us. So the reason why we subtract the the short-term payables, it's because the part of that is not, we do not put money of the total current assets. Part of that is financed by our or supplied by our inventory supplier or from our labor, like that. Okay, so now what does it make sense? Okay, now let's try to look into the details. Okay, also with the short-term payables or the current payables or liabilities. We have liabilities that are free of interest. So these are the accounts payable. Okay, and also we can see also the accrued wages and taxes. These are free of interest. So it means to say that accruals of wages are actually very short. I mean, very short uh, term in terms of days, because we cannot delay the wages like 5 days or 3 days. That's okay. For the taxes, there are deadlines. So some are due in 10 days, some are in 25th day from the close of that taxable period. Okay, but that's very short term. Sometimes accruals can be also happening in like maybe rent if you're not paying, but for now I think rent is paid in advance usually. Okay, but anyway, that's the point. When it comes to the notes receivable, notes payable, that is also a current. However, there's an interest of that. Okay, so that would be somehow called as a financing, not really for the current activities. It is called current is because it falls within the duration of 12 months, that is payable within 12 months. That's why it is current. However, its nature is not really operating. Okay, so that's why it is more on financing. Okay, but in the calculation of the net working capital, that notes payable is included in the deduction against the current assets. Okay, that's why the formula of the net working capital simply as total current assets and current liabilities. Now, here we have another, the net working capital. The net working capital is purely talking only those assets that are actively involved in the operation. Why? Why is it that the net working capital cannot be as a net operating working capital? It is because when you say not all of the current assets are actively involved in the operation. For example, in the cash, not all the cash are really used in the operation. There are what we call some excess. So that's why in the calculation with net working capital, those excess cash are not to be part of this calculation of net working capital. They are to be deducted against the current assets. And also, when it comes to the current liabilities, when it comes to the net working operating working capital, the notes payable with a bearing interest is not part of the liabilities as a deduction against the current assets that is net of excess cash. Again, the notes, because the notes with interest is not an operating in nature, it is a financing in nature. That's the point. Okay, so that's why in the formula of the net operating working capital, operating as current assets, this is for the working capital, right? This is to be calculated by deducting excess cash against the current assets. And the operating current liabilities, the notes payable is excluded. It is deducted against the current liabilities. So therefore, here, the calculation is different. The net working capital will show 690. However, your net operating working capital will show only 800. Why? It is because of this. The 1 billion uh, current assets is now to be deducted by, since there's no excess cash of that, so that is zero. However, in the current assets, because in the total current assets, as we can see here, the total current assets is 310. However, part of that is the notes payable. Therefore, the current assets as considered as operating, I mean the current liabilities as considered as operating, is only 200 million. Therefore, in here, it is only 200 million. And our net operating working capital is 800. So take note, I hope you can see the difference between the two.